everybody! In this video, we will be discussing what racial triangulation is, its effects, and how it can be used to explain the economic competition between Black and Asian minority groups in the United States. So what is racial triangulation? According to Claire Kim, racial triangulation theory proposes that Asian Americans are triangulated within the field of race relations based on their position relative to Blacks and whites on two different dimensions. This results in a racial position distinct from other groups. Specifically, the American public simultaneously praises Asians as a monominority and marginalizes them as the others. The model minority myth is the idea that Asian immigrants have a specific skill set that allows them to become more economically successful in America.
I go over in my head the things that I had told my interviewer. I remembered saying to him, well, I'm Alice. I play piano and violin, I like math and science, and I'm thinking about being pre-med in college. And suddenly, I realized that by sharing these traits about me, I'd unintentionally portrayed myself not as a unique candidate, but rather as the walking embodiment of almost every Asian stereotype known to man.
The model minority myth has been extremely detrimental as it plays into the Asian American stereotypes, portraying Asian moms as tiger moms and children as academic geniuses who work harder than everybody else. The model minority myth is used to excuse the issue that African Americans suffer from racial and systematic oppression with the notion that if they can succeed, so can you. In the book Bitter Fruit, Claire Kim discusses racial triangulation and the racial order. Kim writes that the racial order in terms of privilege goes as follows: whites, Asians, Latino, and Blacks. Though there are many compounding and intersecting factors for this order, Kim points to two of the most contributing factors: residential segregation and economic marginalization. Kim argues that residential segregation leads to political exclusion and, in turn, economic marginalizations of Blacks. Asians are the only racial group who get to live in white communities, work in Black communities, and socially engage in Asian communities. The establishment of Asian Americans in wealthy and largely white neighborhoods unlock opportunities such as better school due to better district funding, tutoring or privatized school help, and better opportunities for extracurricular advancement, which ultimately can lead to a more competitive college application. Access to these resources allow Asian and white generations to operate with an advantage over some Black and brown individuals who statistically are more likely to come from areas without the same amount of wealth. The higher levels of education amongst Asians and lower levels of education amongst Blacks is heavily a contributing factor to the economic disparity between Blacks and Asians. Over 70% of Asians have at least a college degree, allowing them to get a leg up in the professional realm and acquire more wealth. This allows Asians to buy houses in white neighborhoods and work and live alongside whites. Meanwhile, many Blacks often cannot afford to live in these areas due to financial restrictions and absence of privileges such as generational wealth. While Black people grapple with discriminatory practices from residential segregation, Koreans capitalize on this by establishing stores in these communities. However, Koreans view their stores in Black neighborhoods as temporary stepping stone on the way to something greater. Viewer discretion is advised. The next video contains strong language and mature content.
Down.
Let it be broke, motherfucker.
Can you dig it?
It's Doug.
Look at those Korean motherfuckers across the street. I bet you they haven't been off the boat a year before they open up their own place.
That's right, man. It's been about a year.
A motherfucking year off the motherfucking boat, and they already got a business in our neighborhood, a good business, occupying a building that had been boarded up for longer than I care to remember. And I've been here a long time.
Man, you've been here a long time.
Yeah, boy. And now, for the life of me, I can't figure this out. Either of them Korean motherfuckers are geniuses, or you black asses are just plain dumb.
Fuck you.
It's got to be because we are Black. Ain't no other explanation.
Wait a minute.
No, I know, man. You know it's true. Ain't they always trying to keep the Black man to be about shit, I'm saying?
Motherfuckers hold this shit down. Tired of hearing that old excuse. Tired of hearing that shit.
I tell you, I swear, man, I will be one happy fool when we open our own business right here in our neighborhood. I swear to God. I will be the first in line to spend what little money I got.
In Black Politics and Neoliberal Racial Order, Michael Dawson discusses how banks such as Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and SunTrust prey on minorities using a system that charges Black people higher interest rates. Based on the statistics listed on the screen, Blacks are denied loans at a staggering 53%, which is 2 times the rate of whites. In addition to this, prospective Black small business owners are 18% more likely to be denied loans than Asian Americans. As potential Black business owners struggle to secure fair loans or required resources from white establishments, Asians are permitted to obtain said resources. Reflecting back on the argument on the distinct ability that Asians have to live, work, and engage in separate communities, Asian business owners in Black communities often have no ties to the community they serve outside of their business. With this in mind, Asians solicit the Black dollar and invest it back into whites or in Asian communities in which they resided. Consequently, Black communities lose money to Asian business owners that, in most other circumstances, would be recycled back into the same community where the dollar was spent. For example, a Black business owner has a higher likelihood of living and interacting in the same community that they profit from, due to the fact that Black people do not have the same social and economic freedoms as their white and Asian counterparts. These Black business owners are highly likely to stay in and invest in businesses and practices of the Black community where they work and reside. This continues the circulation of the Black dollar. Reflecting back on our brief conversation of the model minority myth, it is important to remind you all that the myth is largely based on accurate statistics showing higher median incomes and educational attainment for Asian Americans over other racial and ethnic groups, including whites. But when the Asian American community is broken down into its respective ethnic groups, a drastically different picture emerges. The poverty rate among Nepalese Americans is 21% higher than the official poverty rate. Hmong Americans are 20% less likely to have a bachelor's degree or more than the average American. The myth continues to be used as evidence against institutional racism. If Asians can do well, it says, any minority group can, if they just apply themselves. But research suggests that the upward mobility of Asian Americans over the past century is actually a result of post-war declines in the labor market discrimination against them, as compared to other minorities. Even as labor market discrimination against Asian Americans has declined, studies show that institutional discrimination never disappeared. Asian job applicants with whitened first names received a 7% higher callback rate than those with ethnically Asian first names. Asian renters and home buyers are told about and shown fewer units than whites with the same economic background, and Asian home buyers are offered less financial help. Furthermore, Asian Americans have experienced increase of discrimination from Blacks and whites who are less economically secure. According to Andrea Campbell, economic conditions influence whites' preference and behavior on racial and ethnic matters. In areas where economic conditions are worse, we expect more negative attitudes and actions toward both minorities and immigrants. In places such as Arizona, Asians experience more discrimination on a daily basis than they do in San Francisco. Model minority rhetoric ignores institutional racism against Asian Americans, not to mention fundamental differences in the history and current reality faced by other people of color, such as African Americans and Latinos. Ignoring these backstories enables society to shrink responsibility for the racial inequality that still exists today. In conclusion, racial triangulation has been extremely detrimental to both parties. In the past decade, Black and Asian coalitions have worked together to create a sense of unity and fight against racial discrimination and more. Storefront sought to promote third world unity primarily between African and Asian American people through a series of Serve the People programs. Activists firmly believed in third world unity, but also realized that while both Blacks and Asian Americans occupied the same space, they also occupied different locations in the racial hierarchy. As a result, Storefront sought to make itself an ally with more groups as an act of solidarity and support. So while some Asians are able to profit off the economic and overall marginalization of Blacks, racial triangulation also alienates Asians. The model minority myth perpetuates harmful stereotypes, pushes the view that Asians are still seen as foreigners, and provides an entirely different narrative that completely disregards all of the struggles that Asian Americans experience. Racial triangulation has been continuously harmful to blacks as they are again and again pitted at the bottom of the racial order. Racial triangulation has played a key role in determining how different groups see one another, and at the end of the day, how groups see themselves within a black and white binary society. Well, folks, that's it for today. Have a good day. Bye.